Hello everyone. Welcome subscribers, especially new subscribers, casual viewers. Glad to have you on my channel. This is Speedster Johnny. I'm heading out on somewhat of a mission today. Headed down to have my Spyder serviced, get its annual service and check over by my independent mechanic, Corban. He is very reasonable, and on top of that, he's like a really nice guy. But in the meantime, I just have to make my way through the neighborhood and see what's going on. As you can see, the leaves are starting to turn. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I think I heard that somewhere. And I'm going to have a great time on this ride. There's supposedly some really very much colder weather moving in over the next few days, probably as we approach the weekend. But we'll see. I don't know what your feelings might be about climate change, global warming, whatever. Something sure seems to be happening, because we have had hotter summers here than when we first moved down here in 2002. It's gotten really hot and humid, and well, we're just trying to deal with it the best we can. Well, the traffic finally gave me a break, so I'm on my way on Route 444, and we're going to be hooking up with US Route 321. We'll be heading north on 321 South. Yeah, you heard me right. It's a bit of a puzzle to me too, but apparently that's just the way it is. And I asked one of the local natives, how can it be that I'm going in a northerly direction on a route that says I'm going south? He claimed it's because it's where the route begins and where the route ends, and what happens in between is apparently not really where it's at. Well, okay, I'm happy to agree that that could be the case, but it sure sounds kind of crazy to me. Route 321 is also known as Lamar Alexander Parkway, named in honor of our Tennessee U.S. Senator of the same name. I believe he's going to be resigning at the end of this term. I don't know if that means that the name of the route will change. I can't imagine that it would. Anyway, I will be having my Spyder serviced on an annual basis unless something happens to dramatically change the amount of riding I do. Unlike Great Rides, who has, 63,000 miles on his Spyder in 1 year more than I've owned mine, I guess since I don't ride it to work, since I don't live very far from anything other than the places I enjoy riding, like the Dragon, the Cherahalla Skyway, the Devil's Triangle, and points in between, I just don't rack up the miles like he does. So 3,000 plus miles a year is about all I do. And as long as I'm having fun, I think that's the main thing. Do I wish I was putting on more miles? I don't think so. Corban will be checking out the functions of all controls and everything, in addition to changing the oil and filters and so forth, which is just normal periodic maintenance. The last time he serviced it, he used Castrol oil, which I've been very familiar with because I used to use it in my red toy car, and I think I got pretty good service out of it. He claims for the number of miles I do and for the overall quality of the oil, it's just fine. And it certainly performed over the past year very well, so I certainly don't have any complaints. I'll ask him to check to see if there's any evidence that I've burned any oil or leaked any oil, or how much in the way there is of ferrous particles that are on the magnetic drain plug. I understand it's pretty typical that there'll be some, but I guess it's nothing to really worry about. I wonder when the temperature takes a dive, how much I'll be getting out. I certainly have enjoyed riding in weather that's in the 60s and 70s, and when it drops down to the 50s, it's still okay. 40s, a little marginal. 30s, probably I'll wait until the sun has a little more time to warm up the air. Although, if you remember, last year I did a cold weather ride, and when I left the house it was 27 degrees. And that's not an experiment I'm going to be looking forward to repeating this winter, but because it certainly was not a very long ride. My battery-powered electric heated gloves didn't quite do the job I hoped they would. They helped a little, I'm sure, but I think some extra thick line gloves that have a good vapor barrier would have probably worked as well, maybe even better. I don't know. I haven't sprung for the cost of the heated gloves that work off battery power. I just don't think that I ride enough to justify the cost of them, because I think they're about $100 and up. And another thing to take up room in my closet, which is already overcrowded. I've seen a video recently from John and Miriam. John took a major ride out west on his Spyder, and he referred to it as the Asphalt Odyssey. It was quite an adventure. Miriam flew out to New Mexico and met him, and they rode together for a while, and then the bulk of the ride back to Virginia was done solo once again. Well, kudos to Miriam for not having to endure some of the things that John did, but she also missed out on a great adventure as well. I know what long bike rides are like. I had a 1971 BMW R60/5, which was probably, if not my favorite, certainly one of my favorite motorcycles. I only had it for 3 years, but I did take some fairly long rides on it. And I felt terrible about having to sell it, because I thought I needed to, because I was getting married. And of course there's always a concern about, am I going to have enough money for the house, and on and on and on. Those of you who have been there understand what I mean. It was a great running machine. I only think it had about 14,000 miles or so on it when I sold it. And I sold it to a kid who was, I had second thoughts about selling it to him, because he told me he had had a Honda CB750, and with 4 cylinders, 4 carburetors, it took a bit of doing to get the thing tuned up right, and apparently he was not much of a mechanic. He got so angry, he told me one time, that he just picked up the tank and threw it. So, of course, it was in the back of my mind that he was somebody that would abuse my pride and joy. And perhaps he did. His father owned a R75, which of course is the larger version of what I had. And I think that his father called me at one point saying that he just didn't seem to think that the machine was running properly. And because they'd be going up a hill, and he would maintain a gear, and his son would have to shift down, or it would kind of bog down. Well, the truth of the story there is that the R60 was very peaky, or pipey, if you will. It didn't really produce much power below about 4,200 RPM, and And since the red line was only like 6,300 RPM, it was a pretty narrow power band. So I tried to explain that to the father, and I actually quoted out of a magazine that I still had on my rack that explained that BMW had, in wanting to create an extra few horsepower, had made the power band rather narrow, and certainly not to expect it to perform like an R75. Well, I don't know if he bought it or not. I told him I'd be happy to make photocopies of the article and send it to him, but I think I satisfied him that I knew what I was talking about, and that there really wasn't anything wrong with the bike. It was just the bike doing what the bike does. A number of years later, I got a call from somebody that was wanting to buy the bike. Now, I don't know if this would be like third hand or fourth hand, or somehow or other they managed to get in touch with me. And he said, was yours the bike that had the broken crankshaft? I said, no, I don't think so. But it just made me think that maybe this kid had taken his anger out on the twist grip and had over-revved it and perhaps done something terrible to the engine. I don't know. Some people just need to stay away from machinery, and he may have been one of those people. Well, in any event, I'll be closing in pretty soon on Powersports Pro, which is Corban's shop, and we'll be looking forward to talking to him and dropping the bike off. In the meantime, I'll be seeing you on the road, in the best sense of the word. Speedster Johnny out. We have arrived at Powersports Pro. Looking forward to a good service appointment and getting the trike back as soon as I can. Hey Corban, how are you?